How did this flight from Ohio end in disaster on a Florida highway? It was supposed to be a routine trip, nothing out of the ordinary. But just minutes from landing, the pilots found themselves in an impossible situation. 2 engines, 2 failures, and no way out. This is the story of Flight N823KD. A last-ditch struggle to stay in the air, a desperate attempt to reach safety, and a tragic end for those in the cockpit. But to understand how it happened, we need to go back to the beginning. It was February 9, 2024. A Bombardier Challenger 600, operated by Hopperjet, was preparing to depart from Columbus, Ohio, to Naples, Florida. On board were 2 highly experienced pilots, a cabin attendant, and 2 passengers. The aircraft had been refueled with 350 gallons of Jet A fuel, and everything appeared normal. The captain was a veteran of the skies, over 10,000 flight hours, with extensive experience in this aircraft. The first officer had even more, 24,000 hours in total, but only 138 on this specific jet. Still, they were a well-trained professional crew. Naples Municipal Airport was a familiar destination. There was no reason to think this flight would be any different from the ones before it. At 3:08 p.m, the pilots contacted Naples Tower. They were on final approach.
Jet A23 is with you on a right downwind for a 5-mile final, runway 23.
Jet A23, roger, make the right turn back towards the airport, release 1 departure ahead, Challenger jet, runway 23, clear to land, wind 22012, gust 16.
All right, Challenger jet departing, we're turning back towards the airport and clear to land, runway 23, Jet A23.
The aircraft was at 2,000 feet, flying at 166 knots. Everything was going according to plan. Then suddenly, alarms. One warning light, then another. First the left engine, then the right. Within seconds, both engines had lost oil pressure. At 3:10 p.m, the first officer made a chilling call to air traffic control.
Okay, Challenger, Jet A23, lost both engines, emergency. I'm making an emergency landing.
Service, got the emergency, clear to land, runway 23. Is that Jet A23?
We're clear to land, but we're not going to make the runway. We've lost both engines.
The crew knew they weren't going to make the runway. The Challenger 600 was coming down fast and there was only one option left. A forced landing. But this was no empty field. Below them was Interstate 75, filled with cars. At 3:17 p.m, the Challenger 600 crash-landed onto Interstate 75. The left main landing gear hit first, then the right. The aircraft skidded across lanes of traffic, barely missing cars before veering off the road. Then, impact. The plane slammed into a concrete sound barrier. A second later, fire erupted, consuming the front section of the jet. Inside, it was chaos. The emergency exits were blocked by fire, but the cabin attendant didn't panic. She quickly directed the passengers to the only escape route left, the baggage compartment door at the rear of the plane. One by one, they crawled out into the open air as flames consumed the fuselage. Against all odds, the 2 passengers and the cabin attendant survived with only minor injuries. One person on the ground was also injured, but the cockpit had been crushed in the impact. Both pilots were killed instantly. With the wreckage still smouldering, investigators turned to the biggest question of all: why did both engines fail at the same time? The Challenger 600 had been well maintained. Its last airworthiness inspection completed just weeks earlier. There were no structural failures, no evidence of a mechanical malfunction. But when investigators checked the fuel system, they found something unusual. The fuel tanks contained traces of water. Could this have caused the engines to fail just miles from safety? Samples were sent for analysis. While the official cause is still under investigation, preliminary findings point to fuel contamination. The aircraft had enough fuel on board, but with water found in the tanks, investigators suspect ice formation or a blockage in the fuel lines. Both engines showed signs of fuel starvation, meaning they likely flamed out mid-flight. The pilots never had a chance. This tragedy is a reminder of how even a minor issue, fuel contamination, can spiral into a catastrophic failure. The pilots did everything they could, but the odds were stacked against them. Aviation is safer today because of lessons learned from crashes like this. But as this case proves, even the most routine flights can turn into a fight for survival in an instant. If you found this story interesting, consider subscribing for more in-depth aviation accident breakdowns. What do you think caused the engines to fail? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and as always, fly safe.